Imagine a mission so secret, so pivotal, that if it had succeeded, or even failed differently, it might have rewritten the history of World War II. Hidden in dusty archives and forgotten stories, this operation remained in the shadows, overshadowed by the battles and heroes we all know. But what really happened? Who made the impossible choices under unimaginable pressure? And what if the world had been spared, or plunged deeper into chaos, because of a single decision? Today we uncover the forgotten mission that could have changed everything, revealing secrets that history books never dared to tell. If you love untold history and thrilling stories from World War II, hit that like button. Subscribe for more deep dives, and share this video with anyone who believes the past still holds shocking secrets. The war raged across continents. Millions of lives were at stake, cities burned, and nations teetered on the edge of collapse. Yet amidst the chaos of monumental battles and legendary campaigns, there existed a mission so secret, so quietly orchestrated, that most historians barely whisper its name. It wasn't the D-Day landings or the Battle of Stalingrad. It was smaller, clandestine, executed by a handful of men whose courage went unseen. And yet, some argue it could have changed the trajectory of the war entirely. How could something so critical slip through the cracks of history? That's the question we'll try to answer. The mission began as a response to intelligence that, if acted upon swiftly, could have crippled enemy forces before they had the chance to strike. But secrecy was paramount. Every movement, every decision had to be concealed. Not just from the enemy, but sometimes from allies. Lives hung in the balance, measured in hours, even minutes. Who were the men tasked with this impossible job? And why did the mission vanish from the history books, while other operations were immortalized? As we peel back layers of classified documents, personal diaries, and survivor accounts, the story unfolds like a suspenseful novel. Each clue leads to new questions, each revelation adding another layer of tension. By the end of this chapter, you'll understand not just the mission itself, but why history forgot it. And more importantly, you'll begin to see how a single operation, hidden in the shadows, could have tilted the scales of one of the deadliest conflicts the world has ever seen. To understand why this mission mattered, we need to step back and look at the larger chessboard of World War II. Every operation, every movement of troops, every strategic decision was part of a delicate balance between attack and defense. Some battles were fought in plain sight, with armies clashing in open fields. Others, like our forgotten mission, were hidden in the shadows, silent, precise, and potentially game-changing. By 1943, the war had reached a critical turning point. Allied forces were pushing on multiple fronts, but the Axis powers still controlled key territories, vital supply lines, and resources that could prolong the conflict for months, even years. Leaders were desperate for decisive actions that could tip the scales. And this mission was supposed to be one of those actions, a surgical strike aimed at a single target that could ripple across entire theatres of war. But what made it so challenging wasn't just the target itself. It was the timing, secrecy, and intelligence required. The planners had to account for unpredictable variables: weather, enemy patrols, unreliable communications, and the ever-present risk of betrayal. One misstep could doom the operation and cost countless lives. And yet the strategy behind it was brilliant. Crafted to exploit weaknesses no one else dared touch. Some historians argue that even today, studying the mission's strategic framework offers lessons for military tacticians. The idea that a few highly trained individuals, armed with precision intelligence and unwavering nerve, could shape history is both fascinating and terrifying. As we move deeper into this story, keep asking yourself how much of history is shaped not by epic battles, but by the quiet, shadowy operations that never make headlines. This mission is a perfect example, and its consequences might have been far greater than anyone realized. Every great mission, especially one lost to history, relies on the people who carry it out. This operation was no different. It wasn't just a plan on paper. It was a test of human skill, courage, and sometimes sheer audacity. Who were the men trusted with this almost impossible task? First, there was the commander, a figure often overlooked in history books. Calm under pressure, yet relentless in pursuit of success. He had a reputation for meticulous planning and a near-obsessive attention to detail. Some colleagues described him as quiet, almost unassuming. But beneath that calm exterior was a mind that could anticipate enemy moves with uncanny accuracy. Then there was the intelligence officer, the one who deciphered coded messages, pieced together scattered reports, and foresaw dangers that no one else noticed. It was this person's insight that shaped the mission's timing and route. Without these carefully curated details, the mission would have been a blind leap into enemy territory. And of course, the operatives, the men who would actually step into danger. Skilled in navigation, sabotage, and combat, they were ordinary men trained to do extraordinary things. Some had faced death before, others were young and fearless, eager to prove themselves. But all shared a singular resolve. Success was the only option. Failure was unthinkable. What's striking is the human element behind every decision. Mistakes weren't just errors. They could be fatal. Every whisper in a briefing room, every glance exchanged in the shadows, carried the weight of lives and the potential to change history. By examining these individuals, we see that this mission was far more than a tactical maneuver. It was a story of human courage, trust, and the delicate balance between genius and risk. And it's in their stories, often buried in memoirs and forgotten reports, that the real drama of the mission comes alive. The mission's fate wasn't determined in the field. It was forged long before, in the dimly lit briefing rooms where maps, diagrams, and classified intelligence dominated every surface. Here, decisions were debated in hushed tones, strategies weighted, and lives measured not in years, but in hours. Every choice had consequences that stretched far beyond the walls of that room. Plans were dissected with painstaking precision. Routes were analysed, enemy patrol patterns studied, and contingencies prepared for every imaginable scenario. Nothing was left to chance. Even the smallest misstep, a delayed message, a misread map, a miscalculated supply drop could unravel the operation before it even began. But beyond the technical details, there was tension, an undercurrent of fear and anticipation that made every officer acutely aware of what was at stake. Intelligence played a pivotal role. Reports arrived in fragments, sometimes contradictory, forcing planners to make judgment calls that would either save or cost lives. Ciphers had to be cracked, spies monitored, and misinformation planted to keep the enemy guessing. It was a delicate dance of secrecy, precision, and sheer nerve. And yet, amidst all the charts and codes, the human element remained central. Officers debated, sometimes argued over the best approach. Some advocated caution, others daring. The room crackled with energy, a mixture of hope, tension, and unspoken anxiety. Every nod, every glance, every whispered question carried weight. By the time the briefing concluded, the mission had already begun in minds and hearts. The choices made here would ripple across time and space, shaping events that history barely recorded. And while the world outside continued its war, inside that room, history itself hung in the balance. The moment of truth arrived when the operatives left the safety of their base and stepped into enemy territory. Every footstep was calculated, every breath measured, as they navigated a landscape brimming with unseen dangers. The night was their ally, but shadows could hide friend or foe alike. The mission was simple in theory, but lethal in execution. Reach the target, complete the objective, and vanish without a trace. Yet simplicity in wartime rarely translates to reality. Roads were patrolled, sentries vigilant, and every misstep could trigger alarms that would turn a precise operation into a catastrophic failure. The operatives moved like ghosts, silent, disciplined, and hyper-aware. Obstacles emerged almost immediately. A misjudged path forced a detour through marshlands, slowing progress. Equipment malfunctioned at the worst possible moments, and the faint sound of enemy patrols raised tension to a palpable edge. Each challenge tested their resolve and training, pushing them to improvise under extreme pressure. One wrong move, one miscalculation, could spell death not just for them, but for the mission itself. Amidst the danger, moments of human vulnerability appeared. Fear was present, but so was courage. Sometimes quiet, sometimes raw and visceral. A whispered word, a shared glance, or a subtle gesture reminded them they weren't alone. The mission demanded precision, but it also demanded trust and camaraderie that went beyond skill. As the operatives pressed forward, the enormity of what they were attempting became clear. They were not just infiltrating enemy lines, they were stepping into a chapter of history that the world might never know. Every heartbeat, every calculated risk brought them closer to a climax that could change everything, or nothing at all. Just when the mission seemed to be unfolding according to plan, fate intervened. A single, unexpected variable, something no intelligence report could have predicted, threatened to unravel everything. Perhaps it was a misstep on the part of an ally, a sudden change in enemy patrols, or simply the cruel hand of chance. Whatever it was, the operatives had to adapt instantly, and every second counted. In moments like these, training meets instinct. Decisions were made in split seconds, often with incomplete information. One wrong choice could doom the operation, yet hesitation could be just as deadly. The tension was electric. Each step forward carried the weight of lives and history itself. And yet, in the chaos, remarkable acts of courage emerged. Operatives improvised, taking risks that no plan had accounted for, moving with a combination of skill, audacity, and sheer luck The twist also revealed human fragility. Some men faltered under pressure, their nerves fraying at the edges, while others rose to extraordinary heights, performing feats that would later be whispered about in memoirs and secret reports. It was a stark reminder that war is not only about strategy, but about the human spirit under extreme stress. By the mission's end, the outcome was altered in ways that few could have anticipated. A task once believed achievable in hours, stretched into perilous uncertainty. And while the operatives completed key elements of their objective, the final impact of their work was forever changed by chance, timing, and the unpredictable nature of war. It begs the question, how much of history is determined by skill and how much by sheer fortune? This mission, hidden, perilous, and nearly forgotten, offers a vivid answer, showing that even the most meticulously planned operations can hinge on a single twist of fate. With the mission concluded, the world outside remained unaware of the drama that had just unfolded in the shadows. Success or failure, the consequences of the operation were deliberately hidden. Official reports were sparse, carefully worded, or simply absent, creating a shroud of secrecy that would last for decades. The operatives returned physically intact, but the mental toll was immense. Some carried guilt for lives lost, others wrestled with the knowledge of what could have been. And while their superiors priced efficiency in private, public acknowledgement was withheld. The mission was classified at the highest level, an invisible thread in the larger tapestry of the war. Why conceal it so thoroughly? The reasoning was multifaceted. Intelligence revealed sensitive enemy vulnerabilities that, if publicized, could have compromised future operations. Political considerations played a role too, as leaders balanced morale at home against strategic advantage abroad. And there was the simple fact that history favours the grand, dramatic narratives, the D-Days and Stalingrads, while smaller, delicate operations are buried, even if their impact was profound. Documents were locked away, diaries sanitized, and participants sworn to silence. Some operatives lived with their secrets until old age, never sharing the details of the mission with family or friends. Yet hints lingered in letters, obscure military records, and memoirs. Piecing these fragments together decades later gives us a glimpse of the tension, courage, and near disaster that defined the operation. This cover-up didn't just hide the mission, it reshaped historical memory. The world would never know how close the war had come to being altered by a handful of determined individuals. And in that silence, a mystery remained, waiting for historians, curious minds, and storytellers to uncover the story that almost changed everything. Decades later, historians and military experts began piecing together what really happened during the mission. Archival documents, declassified reports, and personal diaries revealed a story both remarkable and controversial. Scholars debated not just the tactical choices, but the what-ifs that hung over every decision like a shadow. Some argue that the mission, if fully successful, could have shortened the war by months. It targeted a critical supply line and disrupted enemy communications, elements that, in the historian's eyes, might have saved countless lives. Others caution against overestimating its potential, noting that wars are rarely determined by single operations, no matter how daring. This tension between possibility and reality fuels the mission's mystique. Military analysts highlight the ingenuity of the planning. Using limited resources, the operatives navigated hostile territory with precision. The mission demonstrates how intelligence, courage, and improvisation can intersect in ways that textbooks often overlook. One historian remarked, "This was less about firepower and more about human will, the kind of operation that turns ordinary men into legends in silence." But debates persist. Was the mission a missed opportunity, a daring success, or something in between? Scholars point to subtle clues in enemy records, suggesting that even partial success caused confusion and hesitation. Ripple effects that influence subsequent battles. Yet the full impact remains speculative, leaving room for wonder and imagination. For the public, the story resonates differently. It's not just about strategy or military genius. It's about human courage under extreme conditions, the quiet heroism that rarely makes headlines, and the choices that, if altered, could have reshaped history entirely. As historians continue to study the mission, one thing becomes clear. Sometimes the most fascinating stories of war are the ones almost lost to time. History, as we often learn, has a way of celebrating the spectacular and overlooking the subtle. The Forgotten Mission is a prime example. Its lessons about courage, ingenuity, and the fragile line between success and failure remained buried for decades, overshadowed by larger battles and famous victories. Yet they are lessons worth remembering. One key takeaway is the power of preparation under uncertainty. The operatives moved with limited information, yet meticulous planning allowed them to improvise when the unexpected struck. It reminds us that in any high-stakes endeavour, human judgment and adaptability can be as crucial as any strategy on paper. Another lesson lies in secrecy itself. The cover-up wasn't just bureaucratic, it was a protective measure safeguarding future operations and maintaining morale, but it also teaches a cautionary truth. History can lose nuance when decisions are hidden. The quiet heroism of a few can vanish from collective memory, leaving gaps in understanding that may shape perceptions for generations. The mission also highlights the unpredictability of war. Even the most meticulously planned operations can be swayed by chance, a sudden patrol, a broken piece of equipment, or a simple misstep. And yet, in those fragile moments, human courage can tip the scales, showing the extraordinary capacity for individuals to influence events far beyond themselves. Finally, the story encourages us to question what we know about history. How many pivotal moments are lost to secrecy, misfortune, or mere oversight? By examining forgotten missions like this one, we not only honour those who risked everything, but also learn that history is never just about dates and battles. It's about decisions, risks, and the fragile human spirit that shapes them. Though largely forgotten, the mission lives on, in fragments, whispers, and the careful notes of historians who dared to look beyond the headlines. Its legacy is not in the glory of parades or monuments, but in the quiet courage of those who risked everything in obscurity. The operatives, planners, and commanders may never have received widespread recognition, yet their story reminds us that history is often shaped in shadows. Their bravery and ingenuity altered events in ways we may never fully grasp, proving that even the smallest, most secretive actions can ripple through time. Modern military strategists study the mission as a case study in intelligence, risk management, and improvisation. Scholars continue to debate its potential what-ifs. What might have happened if luck had favoured the operatives fully, or if timing had been slightly different? The questions themselves keep the story alive, sparking curiosity and wonder across generations. But beyond strategy and speculation, the mission's human element endures. It is a story of trust forged under pressure, of ordinary people rising to extraordinary challenges, and of decisions made in moments of tension that could change the course of history. It asks us to consider how fragile our narratives are, and how many pivotal moments have been lost or hidden over time. As we close this chapter, one thing is clear. The forgotten mission is more than a footnote in history. It is a testament to courage, a reminder of the stakes behind every decision, and a story waiting to inspire those willing to look closer. Sometimes the most remarkable acts are those we almost never hear about, but once discovered, they forever change the way we see the past.